Hello there, I am Gifty Ando Apia with your election brief. Today, we assess the impact of political advertising.
Those closest to John Mahama were the prime beneficiaries.
Don't worry, brother. Keep them under control and I'll keep getting the money.
Life has become unbearable. Depositors have been defrauded by Jaboni the Alibaba and his 40 thieves.
That's all in that advert. We'll speak to a political marketing expert on whether or not these adverts have any impact on the party's fortunes. Also, with less than 3 months to election 2020, the IGP is vowing that the police service will take every step necessary within its authority to prevent foreigners and other ineligible persons from voting in the December polls.
You know, once a person is not a Ghanaian, under no circumstance should he be allowed or she be allowed to participate.
Also, it is day 2 of President Akufo-Addo's working visit to the Bono East region. We will give you the latest update as he inspects and inaugurates some projects. This is your election brief with me, Gifty Andopia. We're live on your DSTV 421 Gold TV. Check us out on 144. We're also streaming live on Facebook. You can get us on Instagram and Twitter. We're streaming live on YouTube and also myjoyonline.com. My name is Gifty Andopia. With 89 days to the elections, the two main political parties are going all out and using a variety of marketing strategies to boost their fortunes in the polls on December 7. Now, in the past, the parties often resorted to huge billboards, but in the wake of COVID-19, many are deploying the use of social media and they're sending out their messages through text messages on Instagram, on Twitter, and all the other social media platforms. Of course, traditional media has not been left out. So recently, the NPP released a number of television adverts which received some favorable public attention. Take a look.
Can I be the president when I'm older?
Well, of course, you can be whatever you set your mind to.
But my friend laughs when I tell them I want to be the president.
Come, let me tell you a true story you can tell your friends when they laugh at you. Once upon a time, there was a small boy who watched his father and uncle start the struggles that eventually led to Ghana's independence. And you know what the boy learned from the struggles?
No.
Perseverance. It means never giving up until you have achieved what you set out to do. So when the boy grew up, he became the Secretary General of the People's Movement for Freedom and Justice. And you know what he did? Because he believed in Ghana and democracy, he persevered until his movement brought down the military government in 1978. Really? When he saw that there was no justice for Ghanaians.
Okay, so, but it is this particular advert which has got many talking.
When hard-working Ghanaians deposit their life savings in the bank, they trust the bank to keep it safe for them and their children. And they trust the government to supervise the banks and protect Ghanaians from fraud and thieves. During John Mahama's term, he and the NDC government failed to protect Ghanaians. Many lost their life savings, and some of those closest to John Mahama were the prime beneficiaries.
Don't worry, brother. Keep them under control and I'll keep getting the money.
Today, the NPP is paying back all the depositors who lost their money and cleaning up the mess NDC left behind them. If you can't trust them with your money, how can you trust them at all? This December, vote
And I'm sure you must have chanced upon this advert somewhere. Interesting one, isn't it? But then it got many talking because the opposition NDC then took the concept and tweaked it in their favor. Watch.
Poor Ghanaians were saving their money in banks, withdrawing some and getting loans from the banks to support themselves. Then came a Jaboni, the Alibaba, who planted his men to take over the financial sector. Alibaba and his 40 thieves collected all the money of depositors, used some to buy Electricity Company of Ghana, lived high time life, and then collapsed the banks. The poor depositor, who was expecting as usual to withdraw some money to support herself and buy medication, could no longer get her monies. Tears all over. Life has become unbearable. Depositors have been defrauded by Jaboni, the Alibaba, and his 40 thieves. Please pay depositors now.
So you see what the NPP put out and how the NDC tweaked it to propagate their message. So these TV and social media adverts will continue to compete for the voters' attention. But what impact do they actually have? I'm joined by political marketing expert Dr. Kofi Mensah of the University of Ghana, so we can have a conversation about this. Dr. Mensah, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. I'm sure that you've seen the adverts yourself. First off, I want to ask, do you think that people actually pay attention to these adverts because they are aesthetically appealing, or do people actually listen to the messages being propagated?
Right, thank you for the question. Thanks for having me. Well, certainly, advertising has been with us for so many years, and obviously for their multimodal, kind of impact. When you do adverts, other than issuing, what we call press statements, what you do is that you kind of take control of the audience's, kind of senses. They can see, it has visual impact. Of course, key is about recall, that the advert will be able to generate a recall through the visuals and through the keywords that are actually, being used. And of course, through the sound. So when you use advertising like what they've been doing, you're engaging almost about 3 parts of the audience's senses in that manner. So the multimodal, kind of impact is what, they tend to, kind of hook up onto. But of course, it's not only that, but the sophistication of how the messaging is approached. If you look at it, both MPP and NDC are trying to flank each other, i.e. make sure that they can actually wage into the areas that they think their competitor is not performing very well, and then make sure that they can get a go at them. And so you see them crisscrossing each other or providing counter narratives to whatever the other party actually does. And that is the most sophisticated approach of campaigning that is actually happening. We haven't even seen it in the commercial sense yet, or we haven't even seen that commercial companies are actually applying that counter narrative, even in business or in commerce. So this is very, very innovative, in this particular election.
And so the question actually was whether or not these, sophistications, as they may appear, actually help the voter to make a decision, or they just look at it for the fun of it. And if I understand you correctly, you're saying that these adverts are very engaging, and that it's engaging not just visually, also audio, and somehow it's engaging. But do studies show that these actually have an impact on the decisions that the electorate make?
Of course, making a decision to purchase, like making a decision to vote, is not only reliant on one thing. There are so many variables that are actually coming to play. If you have to actually make a purchase, for example, you've got to understand what you want. You first of all have to know what you need. 2, you have to know, the solutions available, the various options. And 3, you have to evaluate them and see which one would actually, perform your need much better, and then whether they meet your cost, isn't it? These are the kind of series of, activities that consumers actually go through, what we call the consumer behavior. Now, the same way in politics, you just don't go out and vote. You've got to know who you're voting for. You've got to know what they're saying. You've got to know whether you believe them or they have credibility. And so the idea of advertising may not necessarily be that it's the sole reason why somebody would vote, but it contributes to the decision making, because you have to make sure that your message resonates with the consumer or with the voter. you have to make sure that the voter can recall your message. And you remember last electoral cycle, 2016, one of the reasons why it was attributed to NDC's loss, people said that they could not remember what the message was. But of course, I don't think that people would say that they can't remember what the message was, because they have actually employed a lot of devices to make sure that their messaging can actually stay in people's minds, you know. So yes, it may not be the only factor that actually contributes to voting decisions, but it contributes to the making of the voting decision.
I have another last question, but I want to find out from you. So in the NPP adverts, we see the NDC tweak it to, you know, propagate their own message. Is that something that, for example, the NPP can take the NDC on for doing?
Certainly not. I mean, when it comes to, you know, concepts, or when it comes to, you know, concepts like that, you haven't actually trademarked it, or you haven't actually, you know, kind of put any legal seal on it. So you couldn't actually say that, oh, that could actually be amounted, or that could amount to theft, or that could amount to intellectual, you know.
No copyright issues there?
No, not at all, because these are completely, you know, concepts that actually resonate with the issues at stake at the moment. And so you couldn't actually say that there is a copyright concept, because you've got to actually register it to be a copyright. So you can possibly talk about it, but you cannot take any legal issue. Interesting.
My final question will be how you respond to those who say that people have already made up their minds at this point on who to choose, and that these adverts are usually just, you know, official. You know, it doesn't really it actually has only a minimal impact, if at all.
I don't think so. None of the political scientists or political marketers would actually agree to that statement. Because we know that, you know, the voters could actually be segmented. You can segment the vote. We have those who have actually made a decision. We have also those who have actually are floating voters. And even amongst those who have made a decision to vote, there is evidence that we have just conducted a poll that actually suggests that people can change their position even a week to election, depending on what issues are at stake. So if there's a major issue, you know, at stake, for example, if a major issue should befall any of the, you know, the opposing team, you know, it can cause somebody to change, you know, their mind in voting, and it has been established. So the argument that people have made their minds already, I disagree. People change positions, even a week or a day to election.
Interesting. I'm sure we'll have a lot more conversations on this as we go along. Dr. Kofi Mensah of the University of Ghana there. Doc, thank you. So on Voters' Voice today, we feature traders in the Abura Market in the Cape Coast North constituency of the Central Region. Free SHS, school feeding, ability to pay back loans and COVID-19 support will be the deciding factor for them on December 7.
2020, you be sure, Nana. My car, I am a Guvado, one to man, a Guvado, one to man, a Guvado, one to man, a Guvado, one to man. Adama, Mamma, a Guvado, Adama, Massa, one to mind there. Nebber, I will go higher farm and Kuma. A Guvado, Nebber, I go higher farm and Kuma. Mamma, come on, some. Adama, Jerma to about 3 days. Ekufado ya na teribia adama moto abama ende ayimpa odo yimpa ehu yimpa mobwa ye ba be so 7 ya nke biabu Ekufado akumutai abatanu bi matabo gama katamra abatanu makata
nya confirm mo to from Kenya nya mo ayen discuss Ghana ska ya ina what bill show bia no kotokum aye kwa obako school free light ya de bosuba esia ne yakoi insu free bosuba esia ne yakoi na pay na pay ba de e pade ya nkoto topa de ma school for ina was what the net be ama one topa da mo one topa na wa ba say school yo so aside na wa ba say school wa ba say ma me te menyim de wa ba say adan wo che ban wo school sa be krodo nka ala kono chefu akon na chi wo baja yin pa na yin mama wo baja wo la kana fo ma na na wo de yi nka ala kono fo ma na na ba fo ma ya wo sro this year no yarishema ye begina free education no do se be o ye pehia namba hone ye ya ye pehia nchimba no hone kan kwa
On sada yehwe za obi abaya wanye ni he momo sada yehwe edwuma pana wa aba na yeretu ado no edwuma bia wo hyase wonwie mpa wo wie bi ye nyina he enyu atu as Ghana fo no ye hu mpemprenso a we bedu edwuma ozo he na akọ Ghana fo mama he enyu omfura osada ye bo he na enyu a on sada ye dede because ye free da ye bakasa mom ye ndwe no mmofra no ho no daache mmofra no ohia Debi oh Jama Hama Debi Jama Hama Debi Ewiasima yewe o no kura kan ya kuliti o ame mankote da nka mesi Ghana youth titiru mpo Abura Market ya no youth na nkasa o me antuma Bahama chirada apipi ya ngudo nanado batia de ye hu hye bibia no ayehu wa mamamu youth ni ya bla akwaji lo na de to na de ne wala ho achiro bobo ya ntade nawe wa me yanto malo no samle bi en fact no samle black ye bla e taba ko me aba ye bro on samle back on yes you aba yes come back I don't be general that to abide there. I mean, what the free education about on your no hope. Was also was a light free. Pipe free. Ni na yon na mo hyo. Hwe gwa ha mo nam. Ye tumi ye to aba papa. Hwe pe di junction. Nkrofo won bala wo prepra. Accident alo si ho. Wontum woni interchange o sa abazi ye wa abewiazi. Wotumi won be ye bi wo hoda. Igwe ha mo nam was there. Wo friend na one abazi one factory no one abazi. Ni naira ye hu ni bi wa ho. Ni naira ye hu ni bi wa ha. Na so wara kaka. So ye hu ni ye hu ada wala wo ye no gwa mani mu. Na so gwafo ye da wala ye hu po.
Well, you've got to love my people, and I love that accent any day, any time. Kofi Mensah is head of our political desk. He's here in the studio with me. We'll have a quick chat on what you've just heard. Evans, it's good to have you. Yeah, so we're looking at Cape Coast North, the Cape Coast North constituency. I want to find out from you, what do we know about this particular constituency? What trends are emerging?
It's a very interesting constituency. It's a constituency that was created for the very first time in 2012. So in real terms, this will be the third elections for this particular constituency. Okay. It has become, Central Region itself is a swing region. Within Central Region, there are constituencies that, again, swing. So there's a swing region, and then within it, there are swing constituencies. In other words, if you want to focus on Central Region, good. But you have to now isolate, even within Central Region, which of the constituencies should get more attention. Cape Coast North is one of those because since it was created, it has become a swing constituency. Created in 2012, won by the NDC. You remember the former Deputy Attorney General, Abura Market, was the first to win it when it was carved out of the Cape Coast constituency. It became the Cape Coast North and Cape Coast South. And then in 2016, the MPP won it, as in the current Deputy Works and Housing Minister, Barbara, became the candidate for that constituency. So in 2 election cycles, they had changed from one party to the next. That makes it swing. But the history hasn't been long enough. We've had 2. But tells you that this year's going to be interesting. Would they retain the MPP candidate, as in Barbara, or will they go back to the NDC? Now, I remember in 2016... And
help us with a little bit of context. Who is contesting Barbara? In this constituency.
So they recently held a primary and elected a different person to run against him. Against her. The thing about the 2016 was that Abura Market didn't contest Barbara.
Okay, so you can't say for sure.
Yeah, you can't say for sure how this is going to pan out. Yeah. I mean, the primaries ended for both. I mean, Barbara held her own against whoever was. I remember in 2016 holding the ballot box. And again, this is a constituency that hosts the university, the Cape Coast University. And so it is a pretty cosmopolitan area, has very interesting population of market women. This is where the focus is. And Barbara was part of the individuals who were part of the ballot box that day. And when we finished the conversation, I remember very clearly people felt, well, she wasn't articulate enough, but she still won.
Which was Barbara.
Yeah, which was Barbara. But she still won the elections quite handsomely. And so she is formidable. You might take her for granted when you look at her as in a political force. But in that constituency, because of how dynamic the constituency is, they look beyond the form and consider a bit more of the substance. And that is why it's going to be interesting.
How much credit will you give the party, for example, for her win?
I mean, of course, what tends to happen in years when you have a tsunami, like in 2016, is that you can have a pretty weak candidate, but will be helped by the tsunami. Okay, so 2000 was one of those years where we had the tsunami, and so you could probably have a lot of weak candidates who will be swept along because there's a wave of change happening. Same happened in 2016. So the question becomes in 2020. If there's no tsunami, because tsunamis really affect incumbents, okay? So now we're going to judge Barbara's strength properly, because now it's going to be a bit close. And that is why Cape Coast North is important. And if you're coming back to the voices we heard, it is pretty diverse, right? There are those who say they'll vote for John Mahama, we'll vote for Nanado, and you hear the women's side, free SHS. In that constituency, education is important, because there's Cape Coast University. There are a few more other universities within Cape Coast North. And so for them, they've seen free SHS, they've seen their children go to a lot of these senior high schools, very good ones, in there. And so that is important to the people there. But I've had the market women who say, they're also looking at our livelihoods, okay, in making the decision.
They're looking at free water supply, and they actually say, look, we're in the 6th month of a free electricity supply. So those are key factors for them as well. Yeah, absolutely. And so I definitely expect this to be a keenly contested place. If I had any place in Central Region, I want to be on election day, to be this constituency. It will be this constituency. Well, I would love to be there as well. We'll see how it goes. Evans, thank you. Evans Mensah is head of our political desk, helping us to understand, the dynamics of the Cape Coast North constituency. I'm going to take you away from Cape Coast North constituency, because the president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, as part of a second day or 2-day working visit to the Bono East region, is suspected to inspect the ongoing construction of a regional coordinating council in Techiman, a Zoomline waste processing plant, and inaugurate the Bono East Regional House of Chiefs. Correspondent Anas Sabit has been following the team. He's joining me on Zoom. Hello, Anas.
Hello, Gifty.
Tell us where you are currently.
Currently, we are heading towards the venue or the spot where the president will be inspecting the construction of the ongoing construction of the Regional Coordinating Council. We are in the car heading there. We just left Chobodom, where the president cut short for the construction of the Chobodom town roads, which is about 5 kilometers of road. He first paid the courtesy call on the Omahin of the Techiman Traditional Council, Nana Osiadia Kofi Amia the 4th. So as I speak to you, we are heading towards the RCC, where the construction is ongoing. And then next will be the salt cutting for a Zoomline waste processing plant, which is also on the same route getting to Nkranza, where in Nkranza he is also expected to cut salt for the construction of the Nkranza District Hospital, which is one of the 88 district hospitals the president has promised to build across the country.
To bring you more of that later on in our subsequent bulletins. You want to join me at 3 p.m. on the Pulse with more of this and other stories as well. Many thanks. This has been your election brief. I am Gifty Ando Apia.